Are you ready to set a really powerful foundation so that way you can hit the ground running and make some amazing changes? Hey, Dan Candell here, and this segment of the Break Free VIP program is going to be all about identity and belief shifting. In order for you to start creating new patterns of behaviors and breaking out of old patterns of behaviors, thought patterns, feeling patterns, we've got to identify the limiting ones and also identify the ones that you'd like to acquire. One of the only ways and the most powerful ways to do this is to set a really powerful foundation through what I call identity and belief shifting. So if you haven't already, make sure you go in and download the Identity Blueprint Inner Reflection Workbook, because this is going to be the foundation that is going to allow us to build on doing some even deeper inner work. Allow about 45 minutes to an hour for this process. We're going to front load a lot of the work that we do, so that way most of the harder work is going to be done up front, so that way when you move forward, it's going to be a breeze. And this should be also enjoyable work that you do. This shouldn't be a task. This should be really enjoyable work that gives you insight into yourself, because you're going to be creating more powerful belief systems, more internal systems that are going to help push you and fuel you and create more winning moments. So here we go. You already know who I am, probably because you've watched many of my videos before. You've even gone through some of my programs before, read some of my books, maybe even talked to me or one of my team members. So you probably have a good idea who I am already and how this is all going to work. Now, when we go through the identity shift, if someone asks you to define yourself, you'd probably start identifying yourself based on either what you do or certain limitations that you have. Many of us take on the identity of our problems. We say, like, I'm a procrastinator, or I am an anxious person, or I sometimes am a negative person, or we identify ourselves based on what we learned and the limitations of the problems that we have. Now, this question, how would you identify yourself? It could be a point of stress and anxiety for some people, because a lot of people, when asked this question, it may trigger a response that's just negative. And other people might not know who they are. They might not have a good sense of self. Other people might have a good sense of self, but again, it goes back to certain negative aspects of who they are or what they haven't achieved or accomplished. So this is really going to help you suss out some of those ideologies of your identity and belief systems. So what is your identity? Let's start here. Identity is what you do. We are what we repeatedly do, and that is a quote from Aristotle. In fact, be, do, have. So being has 100% to do with doing. If you want to be a certain type of person, then you have to do what that person does, or don't do what that person doesn't do. When you do the things that person does, you get the results of those actions, and you start to become more of that person. You become more in alignment of who you want to be, because you're doing what the person who you want to be does. This makes the person you want to become, and the actions you take and the things you do, it makes it your identity. It is 100% under your control. And I'm going to teach you ways that you can pull this out of you even more. Now, with a new identity, you're going to have new priorities. You're going to have new responses. You're going to have new reactions, or you're going to improve the ones that you already have. So being the number one person comes down to doing what the number one person or a winner would do. So a big part of why you may be here is because you feel you may sabotage yourself, or you may have anxiety, or you may be crippled by stress. And when you think about identify this new identity, this identity shift, what would a non-anxious person do? What would a person who feels anxiety do and still get things done? They would do it anyway. They would blow past that anxiety, or they would use management techniques to gain control over the uncomfortable feelings. So if you do those things that are congruent with the person that you want to become, guess what happens? People will describe you as the person that you want to become when they have evidence and proof that you are that person. So, okay, let's go to the next page here. So I used to start off by saying, okay, how will you know you've made a change? Or how will you know you've embraced your new identity? How will you know you've gotten results from this program? And I used to say, give me the KPIs, the key performance indicators of actions. What will you start doing, stop doing, do more of, do less of, do better or different? And that would trigger people because they would often say, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'll be doing differently. So we don't start with a behavioral level. We don't even start with a feeling level. We start at a thought level. So let's start here and let's just play. Let's just experiment. Let's play. So use the space to write down or type out what thoughts. So once you start becoming that person you want to be, what thoughts are you going to start having? As it says here, at first, we can't control which thoughts pop into our heads. However, we can control the thought patterns and which thoughts we get caught up into. And we can change the influence that those thoughts have on us. When negative thoughts no longer have power over us, we begin to liberate ourselves from those thought processes that are invading our minds. So once you make some changes through this foundation program, through this program that you're in right now, once you start making some changes, and let's say it's like 8 weeks from now, and you are having a conversation with a loved one, a close friend, a mentor, a partner, somebody that's important to you. You're having a conversation 8 weeks from now. You've made some noticeable changes. You notice it, they notice it. Once you've made those changes, use the space below just to write down what thoughts you are going to have once you embrace your new identity. So what thoughts are you going to have? It might be thoughts like, oh, I've got this. It might be thoughts of you wake up in the morning and you say, oh, I'm going to enjoy my day today, or today's going to be a great day. It might be thoughts of, oh, I can achieve or accomplish anything. It might be thoughts that are just so normal for you to have those thoughts like, oh, I have this thing to do, I'm going to do it. So what thoughts are you going to notice? What thoughts are you going to have more of? And as you identify what thoughts you're going to have more of, what you're going to be thinking more, how are you going to be thinking better? What are those thoughts going to be? What are the quality of thoughts going to be? Just take a couple of minutes to reflect upon some of these thoughts that you're going to have. And the reason why we start with thoughts is because thoughts influence your feelings, sensations, and emotions, which influence your behaviors, actions, reactions, and responses, which re-influence your thoughts. So we always want to start with a thought-based level. And this is where we want to identify old thoughts versus new thoughts. So what are some of those old thoughts that you are having? I'm a loser. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be as good as that person. I'm never going to achieve this. I'm always going to be stuck. Or some of those what if thoughts. What if this doesn't work? What if things never get better? What if I lose all my money? What if my partner breaks up with me? What if I never find someone? What if I'm always alone? So what are those old thoughts? And what are the new thoughts? The new thoughts, I can do this. I will do this. I deserve to succeed. I'm able to do this. I'm capable of doing this. I'll push myself to do this. So what are the old thoughts and what are the new thoughts? Even if you have to pause the video, actually take time to reflect on this and to get curious, because curiosity is actually a hypnotic state. Curiosity evokes deep insight within us. So even if you have to pause the video just to take some time to reflect. Even if you have to play some music in the background or light a candle, do something that helps you really go inwards and just reflect with this exercise. Once you've done this, we can now move on to the key feeling indicators. Like I said, we have thoughts, which influence feelings, sensations, and emotions, which influence behaviors, actions, reactions, and responses. So now that you're thinking better thoughts, again, it's 8 weeks from now. You've been in the program for 8 weeks, and you are noticing a drastic difference. You're having a conversation with somebody. How will you describe to them what you've been feeling that indicates you've made a shift? So as you see here, our thoughts influence our feelings. When you start changing your thought patterns, you'll change how you feel. However, many people only become aware of how they don't want to feel, which makes them think about all of those toxic or negative feelings, sensations, or emotions. And that keeps them stuck in place, stressed out, overwhelmed, and anxious, and it keeps them in a self-sabotaging loop. By becoming aware of how you'll shift into a better feeling state, You'll become more aware of your behaviors, actions, and reactions and responses that are necessary and required to shift your identity and become the person you want and know you can be. So, a lot of people, when I first ask them, what will you be feeling? A lot of people will first say, well, I won't be feeling this. I won't be feeling that. No. What will you be feeling? Maybe you'll be feeling a sense of confidence. And what does confidence feel like? How do you know? Let's go a few layers deep here. What does confidence feel like? How do you know you'll be feeling that way? Confidence, when you think about it, confidence, what do confident people do? They might sit up a little bit straighter. They might use more expansive body language. They might have a different posture. They might speak a little bit louder with a little bit more of a vocal inflection or vocal tone. So what do confident people do? They may use hand gestures a little bit more. So when you say to yourself, this is how I'm going to be feeling, we want to stay in the positive feeling state. What else are you going to be feeling? Confident. What about inner peace? Maybe a sense of presence. Maybe a sense of passion or passionate enthusiasm. Maybe a sense of self-assurance. What else will you be feeling? So as you take some notes here on what you're going to be feeling, now we can get to the old versus new. So identify what you were feeling before. What were those feelings that you were experiencing before? And what are the new ones going to be? What are you going to be feeling once you know you've made a shift? How will you know you've gotten better? How will you know you are making progress? How will you know? And write down the old versus new feelings. The reason why we want to do this also is because it activates our reticular activating system, the part of our brain responsible for awareness. And the more aware we become of how we're thinking, how we're feeling, and what we're doing, the more we are likely to do what we need to do in order to get there. So we put it in our awareness, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If all we do is become aware of what we don't want to think, what we don't want to feel, what we don't want to do, guess what's going to happen? That's what we're going to create. We're going to create more of that. Some people call this the law of attraction. Some people call it manifestation. It has nothing to do with woo-woo stuff. It has nothing to do with new agey stuff. It has everything to do with opening up and expanding your awareness. So again, even if you have to, pause the video, take a few moments to really write these down. Just become aware of what your new identity is going to be, what the new feeling identity is going to be. Now, this is my favorite part, the key performance indicators, the KPIs. And by the way, from the time I'm recording this video, I just learned what KPI meant about 1.5 years ago. And I felt so smart when I figured that out. I'm like, how did I never know what a KPI was? I just never heard it before until I started working in some more professional niches. So remember I said thoughts influence your feelings, sensations, emotions, which influence your behaviors, actions, reactions, and responses. So again, let's align your thoughts and feelings with your behaviors and your actions. Once you start shifting your thoughts and your feelings, you'll be able to change the way you act, change the way you respond, change the way you behave or the way you react, which in turn will change what you do. So answer the questions that I listed down for you below. Now, here's the key. These are not finite. Just because you write these down don't mean that they're going to be definite. They may change. So sometimes people have a little bit of a hard time doing this part because they say, well, I don't really know what's going to change. I don't really know how that's going to influence my life or affect me. Let's just pretend. Let's just imagine. So that way we put something out there in our awareness. And if we don't like it, we change it. So, for example, one of the things, and also speak in a present tense while you do this. One of the reasons why I work with a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs and executives and business professionals is because there is directly related to going through this program, there's usually an ROI, an initial return on investment. So for example, as a result of thinking better, as a result of feeling better, like as a result of thinking, oh, I can do this and I'm fearless. And as a result of feeling more confident and more charismatic, the action may be You might be making more calls instead of avoiding calls, or you might be sending more emails instead of avoiding emails. You might be publishing or producing more content, or asking for testimonials, or asking for reviews more. And as a result of that, you'll be making more money. You'll be getting more clients. You'll be doing more business. You'll be closing more deals, closing more sales, seeing more patients, whatever it is. So like I said, remember, these things don't have to be set in stone, but it puts all of this into your awareness so you can start making some necessary shifts. So it is now 8 weeks from the time you started this program. You're having a conversation with a friend or a loved one or a coworker or somebody that you're really close with, and they're saying what they have noticed in you as having changed. You're having a conversation. Oh yeah, I've really gotten better at this. So what will you be talking about? What will you stop doing? So some people who get caught in the procrastination loop, some people will stop binging on their phone so much, binge scrolling or doom scrolling. Some people will stop doom scrolling on their phone so much. Some people, they'll stop complaining so much. Some people, they'll stop watching TV so much. Some people, they'll stop watching porn so much. Some people will stop drinking so much. So what will you stop doing? Let's start there. What will you stop doing? What will you start doing? A person that I worked with recently who had a fear of driving, she said, I'll start driving more, which means I'll start going to my appointments more. I'll have more independence. So what will you start doing? Maybe you'll start sending more emails. Maybe you'll start reaching out to people more. Maybe you'll start working with people more. What will you do less of? That's supposed to say, what will you do less of, not more of. What will you do less of? And it could be the same thing that you listed for what will you stop doing. Maybe you'll do less calling people and gossiping. Maybe you'll do less complaining. What will you do less of? What will you do more of? What will you do more of? What will you be doing better? And what will you be doing that's different? Now, the answers to some of these questions may be the same. Or you might say, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna answer 4 or 5 of these questions because one of them might not really apply to me right now. And that's perfectly fine, but you want to fill in as many as you can. So again, if you have to pause this video to take time to do this, even use the back of the paper if you need to, go ahead and do that. So now that you know what you're going to be thinking, now that you know what you're going to be feeling, now you know how you're going to be responding, what your KPIs are going to be. Once you've made that change, how will you know? What will you notice? How will others know? What will others notice? So put in this category you. Maybe you'll notice, oh wow, I'm more productive. I'm feeling better. I'm in a better mood. I'm treating people differently. I'm going more places. I'm taking more opportunities. And how will other people know from an observational experience? So we have objective perspective and subjective. Subjective is you. What are you noticing? Objective, what do you think other people are going to notice? Maybe other people will say, oh, wow, you seem to be feeling more relaxed, more calm. You feel like you have some more pep in your step. You feel almost like you're standing up for yourself more, like you're speaking up more. So what will other people notice? And again, you want to put some time and some detail into this because essentially what you're doing, you're rewriting your identity story. Now, once you do this, and once you go through this, there's something very powerful that I call the inverse identity model. We're often told, oh, think about who you want to be or what you want to do, but it becomes more effective to start with the opposite. It's easier for our brains to find problems instead of solutions because we're just wired that way. We're programmed to survive, not thrive. To survive the day, not have a better tomorrow. Our brain focuses on quantity of life, not quality of life. Our brains are wired to survive, to see another day, not enjoy today. But we can enjoy today and live longer, live throughout the day and enjoy the day and each day that comes. So let's use the anxiety-driven, threat-finding brain that we're wired with for something good. We can actually use anxiety to help instead of hinder us. So here's how we do this. This is what we call inverted thinking with the inverse identity model. Think of or imagine the least successful version of yourself. Like, God, I feel like such a loser. Like, I feel like such an idiot. Think of or imagine the least successful version of yourself. What does that person do or not do to guarantee you won't succeed, to guarantee failure? How do they guarantee that you'll lose? It could be something like, binge watching Netflix, video games, social media, being impatient, not being prepared, lack of confidence, constantly complains about things, seeking out drama, procrastinates. It might be thinking, okay, how can we use these ideas so our minds can actually win instead of lose? And we invert it. So what is the opposite of all those things you just identified? And that's the inverse identity. So that's where we go from yuck to yes. In this column, write down the guaranteed ways to fail, lose, be miserable, be anxious, be stressed, be stuck, self-sabotage. In this column here, the yuck column, write down all the surefire ways to fail. And then the yes column, write down all the surefire ways to win, succeed, achieve, do more, feel better. And this here is going to be more of your new identity, because remember, identity is what we do. Identity comes down to what we do. Every moment is an opportunity to change your perspective. So take this opportunity to change your perspective. Make sure you go through this part of the workbook in great detail and do it. Make sure you put the time, the effort in, so that way the rest of the program is going to be easier for you. And with that said, we're going to get into part 2 in the next video.